I want you to understand something before I tell you this story. I am not a hero. I am a man who sat at a desk, drank bad coffee, and watched a screen. That is all I did on the day humanity changed the galaxy forever. My name is Commander Arjun Malhotra, and I worked for the Earth Unified Defense Command, deep inside a bunker beneath the Himalayan mountains. My job, for 2 very boring years, was to listen to silence. I monitored deep space signals, logged satellite data, and wrote reports that nobody read. I called it babysitting the void. But on a quiet Tuesday morning, the void spoke back. It started at exactly 8:42 in the morning, Universal Time. Every communication device on the planet activated at the same moment. Every television, every radio, every phone, every speaker in every hospital and airport and school on Earth carried the same voice. It was deep and layered, like the sound of a pipe organ echoing inside a stone cathedral. It spoke in perfect English, perfect Mandarin, perfect Hindi, perfect everything. Whatever technology it used, it translated itself into every language simultaneously. The voice identified itself as Overseer Creath Varanus, first speaker of the Concord of 14. We had heard that name before. For 18 months, our deep space monitoring teams had been intercepting alien communications. We knew that the galaxy was governed by a council of 14 ancient species who called themselves the Concord. We knew they watched younger civilizations the way a farmer watches weeds. And now, their leader was speaking directly to every human being alive. It was not a greeting, it was a sentence. Varanus told us that humanity had been observed for 312 years. He told us we had been classified as a Category 9 invasive predator species, the highest threat level in their system. He told us that the Concord had voted unanimously for what he called preemptive sterilization. He said that a fleet of 4,200 warships was already positioned behind Jupiter. They had been sitting there, hidden, for 6 weeks, waiting for the order. He told us we had no right to negotiate, no right to appeal, and no right to surrender. The bombardment of Earth would begin in 22 minutes. His final words were calm and precise. "This is not cruelty," he said. "This is ecology." And then the transmission ended, and the world went quiet for about 3 seconds. Then the chaos began. I could hear it through the walls of the bunker, through the comms chatter flooding every channel. People were screaming. Governments were scrambling. Cities were panicking. It was the worst moment in human history. But inside the bunker, I did not panic. I set down my coffee cup, and I picked up the red phone on my desk. I called Director Yuna Saito, the head of UDESE. She answered before the first ring finished. She already knew. Her voice was steady and cold, the voice of a woman who had prepared for this exact moment. She said 4 words: "Wake up, Prometheus." Now I have to tell you what the public did not know. When we first intercepted alien signals 18 months earlier, we did not just listen. We decoded everything. Military channels, star maps, weapons blueprints, tactical doctrines, cultural archives. Every piece of information the Concord had ever transmitted, we captured and studied. This was humanity's secret weapon, and it was not a missile or a bomb. It was our ability to take something apart, understand it completely, and rebuild it better than the original. What other species developed over centuries, human engineers and scientists figured out in months. Our leaders knew what was coming. The decoded alien communications contained references to something called the Sol problem and pending ecological action. They were talking about us. They were planning to end us. We had 9 months of warning. 9 months during which the governments of Earth, in total secrecy, built a program called Project Prometheus. Let me tell you what Prometheus built. First, there were the Shatterpoint missiles. Our scientists reverse-engineered them from the Concord's own warp field technology. These weapons did not carry explosives. They did not burn or shatter or pierce. Instead, they collapsed the fabric of space around their target. A ship caught in that collapse simply ceased to exist. It was not destroyed. It was erased, as if someone had cut a hole in a photograph. No wreckage, no remains, just empty space where something used to be. Second, there was the Whisper Net. Our engineers had built a quantum communications system that connected directly to the Concord's own relay network. We had been inside their communications for 7 months. We knew the position of every ship in their fleet. We knew their shield frequencies. We knew their command structure. We were reading their mail, and they had no idea. Third, there were the ghost satellites. Over the past 6 months, we had quietly placed 900 stealth weapons platforms across the solar system, disguised as ordinary asteroid debris. Each one carried 40 Shatterpoint missiles. They floated silently among the rocks, waiting. And finally, there was Aegis. It was an artificial intelligence that linked every ghost satellite, every repurposed submarine, and every ground-based defense cannon into a single coordinated system. Aegis had been running simulations against a fleet of exactly this size for months. Its projected engagement time was 6 minutes and 48 seconds. The Concorde called us predators. They studied our wars, our history, our capacity for conflict, and they concluded we were dangerous. They were right. They just did not understand how right they were. Within 90 seconds of the alien broadcast, every world leader was connected to a secure conference. The Prometheus briefing took 45 seconds. The vote to authorize full defensive response was unanimous. It took 11 seconds. No debate, no politics, no ideology. When something tells you it intends to end your species, you stop arguing and you act. Across the world, submarine commanders opened sealed orders they had been given months ago. Defense systems went to full readiness. But before we fired a single shot, Director Saito made a decision that I will respect for the rest of my life. She ordered me to open a direct channel to Overseer Varanus. Not to beg, not to surrender, to warn him. I transmitted on their secure military frequency. There was a long pause. I could almost feel their confusion. They could not understand how a primitive species had accessed their most protected channel. Then Varanus answered. His voice still carried that cathedral certainty, that ancient authority. Director Saito spoke through my relay. This is Director Yuna Saito of Earth. You have made a mistake. We are giving you 60 seconds to remove your fleet from our system. Varanus was amused. I could hear it in his tone. He called us a larval species playing with stolen signals. He told us the Concorde had sterilized over 40 worlds before ours. Earth, he said, was nothing special. Saito did not raise her voice. 40 worlds that could not defend themselves, she said. We can. Leave now, or we will show you. Varanus cut the channel without another word. 60 seconds passed. No withdrawal. No movement from the fleet behind Jupiter. Saito's voice came through my headset, calm as still water. Aegis, you are free to engage. Condition, total. What happened next took 6 minutes and 52 seconds. 900 ghost satellites powered up simultaneously across the solar system. The Concorde fleet's sensors must have erupted with warnings from every direction. There was no front line. There was no formation to face. Humanity had turned the entire solar system into a trap. The first wave launched 12,000 Shatterpoint missiles in perfect coordination. The Concorde's shields were designed to resist plasma, energy beams, and physical impacts. But our weapons did not attack matter. They attacked space itself. The shields meant nothing. On my tactical display, I watched the red dots representing enemy ships begin to vanish. Not one at a time, hundreds at once. They blinked out like stars fading at sunrise. 400 ships gone in the first 30 seconds. The Concorde fought back. They were not helpless. These were warships that had conquered dozens of species across thousands of years. They fired massive salvos at our satellites and launched faster-than-light torpedoes toward Earth. Several ghost satellites were taken out. But Aegis responded instantly. Ground-based cannons fired interceptors that erased the incoming torpedoes before they reached our atmosphere. Not a single one got through. The Concorde fleet tried to regroup into standard defensive formations, but Aegis had studied their entire tactical doctrine, decoded from their own military archives. Every formation they attempted, Aegis already had a counter prepared. They were reacting. We were anticipating. They were fighting the war they knew. We were fighting the war they had not yet imagined. By the second minute, 1,800 ships were gone. At the 3-minute mark, something shifted. The fleet stopped advancing. Ships began turning, trying to retreat, trying to jump to faster-than-light speed and escape the system. But Aegis had anticipated this too. The ghost satellites positioned behind the fleet activated, forming a second ring of engagement zones. Ships that tried to run moved directly into waiting salvos. I watched my screen in silence. The red dots were disappearing faster than I could count. Hundreds every few seconds. It was precise and total and overwhelming, and I felt something I did not expect. Not pride, not satisfaction. I felt sick. Each of those dots was a ship carrying thousands of living beings. They had families somewhere. They had lives and memories, and perhaps even children, waiting for them to come home. And they were vanishing from existence because their leaders had made a terrible decision. But I pushed that feeling down. They had come to end 8 billion lives. Every child on every playground, every grandmother in every kitchen, every person who had ever looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone. The Concorde had come to erase all of it. I could carry the weight of what we did. I would carry it later. At minute 6, fewer than 200 ships remained. They clustered together around the flagship in a desperate formation, like frightened animals pressing close for comfort. It would not save them. A final transmission broke through from Varanus. His voice was different now. The cathedral tone was gone. The ancient authority had crumbled. He sounded small. "How?" he said. "You were nothing. You were animals on a small wet rock. How is this possible?" Nobody answered him. There was nothing to say. At 6 minutes and 52 seconds, the last red dot on my screen, the flagship of the Concorde of 14, blinked and disappeared. 4,200 warships. Gone. Not a single human life lost. I sat in the silence of the bunker. I looked down at my desk. My coffee cup was still warm. That detail is the one that stays with me more than anything else. The mug was still warm. In the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee, an entire galactic military power had ceased to exist. The world did not celebrate. The alien broadcast had been public. Everyone on Earth had heard the threat and knew what followed. The mood was not victory, it was shock. Humanity had just demonstrated that it could erase a galactic superpower in less time than it takes to soft-boil an egg. 2 days later, Director Saito sent a message to the galaxy. Not to the remnants of the Concorde, which was already collapsing without its leadership and fleet. She sent it to everyone. Every species on every frequency we could reach. The message was simple. Earth does not seek conquest. Earth does not seek revenge. We welcome trade, friendship, and the exchange of knowledge with any species that approaches us in peace. But, and this was the part that mattered, if you come to our home with hostile intent, understand what you are choosing. We did not start this. We will always finish it. I am an old man now. I have given my testimony to committees and historians dozens of times. I have answered the same questions over and over. Was it necessary? Could we have found another way? Do I regret it? Here is what I tell them. The Concorde studied humanity for 300 years. They watched our history, our conflicts, our endless struggle to be better than we were yesterday. And from all of that, they concluded that we were dangerous animals who needed to be put down. They saw our capacity for conflict, and they were afraid. They were right to be afraid, but they missed the point. A predator takes life to survive. That is all it does. But a human being creates. A human being builds. A human being writes music and plants gardens and holds the hand of a stranger who is suffering. And when you threaten the people a human loves, when you point your weapons at our pale blue home hanging in the darkness, something ancient and unstoppable wakes up inside us. We become the thing the Concorde feared, but 1,000 times more than they ever imagined. 7 minutes. That is all it took. I pray every night that nobody ever makes us do it again.